we threw a couple of things around here this morning for our Double Shot Tuesday.
Wasn't sure how I wanted to go.
I said, well, the World Cup starts this week. We can do something worldly, artists from other countries, thinking, a lot of countries coming here.
Yeah.
They might be here right now. Hey, guys, shout out to whatever country you're from. And Chris goes, hey, we should do something with gambling with Brandon Sorsby.
Why not? Well, it's either nostalgia with the rematch of the NBA Finals, or you know what? Let's make some fun of what's going on, because nobody is happy about what is happening with Brendan Sorsby.
So
we're gonna take advantage and just have some fun with it.
So Brendan, we're going with a gambler to start.
Yes.
Know when to hold him. Know when to fold him. Know when to walk away. Know when to run.
So songs about
he did
gambling.
Not know when to walk away. How many bets my man make? He did not know when to push away from the table. And it doesn't even matter. Hey, doesn't even matter.
Just goes to show you can break any rule you want, especially one of the major ones you are not supposed to break. And in today's day and age, it don't matter.
Sam Ehrlich, a Boise State College of Business and Economics assistant professor and a former lawyer, will join us in the 11 o'clock hour today. I have a rudimentary understanding of how we've ended up where we've ended up in reading people who are smarter than me and lawyers. But I'll ask him all the questions I would have on your behalf, audience, and we'll get a lawyer's take on where we are and what can be done or will be done, because that's what we're all wondering here today and trying to figure out. The appeal has already been filed, and we'll revisit that. By the way, we should go back to the gambler here. 50857.
Or hit us up on the stream if you'd like.
That's right. We got the YouTube stream as well. You can drop comments in there. 96.9 Game On. And if you have a song related to gambling in one way, shape, or form, other than the gambler, I'm sure there are plenty out there. None are popping into my head right away.
Well, there's a lot of like gambling themed songs, like Poker Face,
of course,
Lady Gaga, but that's not about gambling. It's just got poker in the name.
Poker in the name, yeah, that works.
But you know what? Let's make it a little bit easier.
Maybe referencing something else in that song, but that's okay.
It is. We'll just do if it's gambling titled or gambling themed.
Yeah,
we'll rock with it.
I like that. 50857. You can text in your request here to the show this morning. We will certainly discuss a lot of the Sorsby case and what it means and where we're at right now. Matt Murschel will join us in the 10 o'clock hour. Mark Daniels will join us in the 10 o'clock hour. We will broach that subject with those guys at that time as well. The finals last night, I'm a neutral observer, right? Like I don't really care. It's not affecting my life in any way with who wins or loses. I thought the Spurs would win. I was certainly surprised that they dropped the first two games of the series. But there is a big part of me, CV, that would like the Knicks to win. I feel like San Antonio is going to win some titles with Wemby at some point. It's inevitable that I don't know how many they're going to win, but they're going to win some. And so for a fan base that's been down in the dumps, and for many that have not won, seen a championship in their lifetime, right? Like it would mean a lot to them. And clearly, like that crowd was nuts last night. That was a fantastic home crowd, a pent up frustration of shortcomings over a quarter of a century plus that showed up last night and showed out. A terrific game, just didn't go their way last night, but that's the way all three games have been. I've been very happy as a viewer of the series so far.
It's been a lot of back and forth. The start of, I think, if I'm not mistaken, all three games have kind of started rough. A lot of turnovers, a lot of laying bricks, and then you kind of get settled into the game. You get a flow going, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Spurs have jumped out to leads in all three games. Pretty early, and then the Knicks make the run.
Right.
And then we got that back and forth going all game long. And if you're a Knicks fan, and I'm sure Mark can attest to this, your level of anxiety is through the roof watching this back and forth.
Last night's game played closer throughout the entire contest. Like that was a close competitive game. We've had double-digit leads swing each way in the first couple of games. Last night, oddly enough, the Spurs got it to 10 there in the fourth quarter when Wemby looking like he's got a 4-point play, and then they review it, offensive foul. And so it was a momentum shift. Clearly, it was the right call and a momentum shift that helped the Knicks crawl back into it and even make it a one-possession game. But the Spurs, I mean, if we're being honest, kept them at arm's length because they only got it down to 3 with Castle at the line at the very, very end. San Antonio, with the way they came out of the gates in the second half, is what made the difference because at halftime, I mean, again, these guys are paid to entertain, but Charles Barkley was saying it's over, right? The Knicks went on that run before halftime, and it looked like only because they were up 2-0 in the series, and we know how the previous 2 games went, that it felt like, all right, they put them, they suffered, they survived, if you will, the first run the Spurs were going to throw at them, the flurry of punches. They put the young team in their place before halftime. They're going to run away and hide, but that wasn't the case. Spurs answered the bell in the second half.
And that's almost typical of a Spurs team. They matured before our eyes. And, we're expecting them, their average age like 24 years old. And we're expecting them the stage 2 big, Madison Square Garden, celebrities all through the front row. And they put the blinders on. They stayed focused, head down. They did their thing.
It always is going to boil down when you get to the championship rounds, deeper into the playoffs. It starts with your stars being stars. No team's going to win a championship with their star performing poorly. And you can look at every era, and there are great all-time players that did not play well in an NBA Finals, and their team lost those NBA Finals. Sometimes you can play well and still lose if you don't have the supporting cast, because that's where it goes next. It's to the next, hey, who are we counting on next? And who each team are counting on next. OG Anunoby played awesome last night. Cat didn't. Cat did not. On the Spurs side of things, Castle played awesome last night, but De'Aaron Fox didn't, right? And so then you have to go to the next phase of things, and it really is, all right, who's now coming up and knocking down shots? When the ball finds you, are you knocking down your shots? And like for the Knicks, it felt like, man, Jordan Clarkson came in, gave them a punch. It wasn't Bridges last night, but it was Hart. The ball found Josh Hart, and Josh Hart, even though he struggled in these playoffs, was making the shots. And that's when you had the feeling at halftime, I think, is Hart, I think, knocked down 3 threes in that first half. It's like, all right, if he's going to do that, they're in trouble. But then I thought the one switch that made a huge difference in the game was when San Antonio, for the first time, really said, you know what, we're going to put Wemby on Karl Anthony Towns and play this more traditional and still let Wemby play all over, but actually guard the guy he should guard. And I think it really put the Knicks in a pinch of how they wanted to do that. And they talked about it a little bit after the game. Is it felt like New York fell back into the old habits of, all right, we don't want to play through Karl Anthony Towns anymore because Wemby's on him. And so it was Jalen Brunson trying to initiate a lot of the offense. And they really struggled in that third quarter and into the fourth quarter. And even those last 4 minutes I talked about with KV, the last 4 minutes when Wemby went to the bench in the third quarter, where you thought, all right, this is where the Knicks can go back, take the lead going to the fourth quarter and build confidence. The Spurs were able to hold them off and have the lead going to the fourth quarter before Wemby to come back in, and then obviously getting them into foul trouble early in the quarter and getting to the line often was a big difference.
Yeah, I think it was the fourth quarter. The Knicks had 2 fouls like right out of the gate.
Instantly. They were in the bonus at the 8.5 minutes to play in the game.
That's not where you want to be. And I'm wondering now if, we thought Cat's been kind of dominating Wemby because Cat is, he's got more muscle. We talk about Wemby being tall, but he's so lanky, he doesn't have a lot of mass to him. And Karl Anthony Towns has kind of had his way. I'm wondering if now age might be becoming a factor. Cat is 8 years older. Maybe he's starting to wear down. He's 8 years older than Wemby.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if it's starting to catch up.
I don't know about that. I mean, that's a thought. I don't know that the Knicks certainly are mature, but they're not old. There's no one really on the Knicks that
I'm not calling them old by any means, but I mean, 8 years is a big age gap.
I think it's interesting, right? Because I think the number one critique that many people would have when you watch San Antonio is you'd love to get more offensively out of Wemby, right? And it's not that he's playing poorly. He's playing really well. He's averaging, I don't even know what he's averaging. I'm probably right around 30, right? If you look for the series, because he had 30 last night. So he's got to be He was 27, I think, going into last night.
He's averaging 29, 10, and 3 assists and 3 blocks.
Right. And we're saying we'd like to get more out of him. And I think it's in the way we'd like to get the more out of him. We'd like to get him to be a little bit more efficient. Yes, he can amaze us by draining a 30-foot three-pointer. That's awesome. But you'd almost like to go, hey, with that frame, we'd like to just be able to throw it down to you and get a bucket every time we wanted one. We'd like to get the other team in foul trouble, right? But he's just not, he doesn't have the body type yet to get away with it. He's certainly not Shaq. I mean, Shaq would break him in two if he was trying to be guarded by Wemby, frankly, as big as Wemby is. Like, Shaq would break him in two. And I think in part the reason why San Antonio still plays with him on the perimeter as much as they do is they know they're going to wear him down. They've monitored his minutes all year. He's already obviously approaching record highs every game with how many minutes he's on the floor, and that's what's required to try to win a championship now. But they know if they keep throwing him in where he's going to get beat up even more once he goes inside the three-point line, then he may not be able to take the minutes. Because even the idea, because my brain's going last night as that game's 1 point going to the fourth quarter is, all right, so if they're going to play Wemby the whole fourth quarter, will he be able to hold up for the next 12 minutes if the Knicks keep pushing him around and staying physical with him?
Well, and that's the thing with guys that are over 7 foot, you worry about their legs. Their legs are always an issue. And there were, like, Wemby would sit for minutes at a time. And 7'4", I still want to see you down low. I want to see you down low because if, Castle shoots and misses, De'Aaron Fox shoots and misses, Champagnie shoots and misses, you want to be able to get that offensive board. And if you're out on the perimeter, you're not.
Yeah. That's the one thing I think that has shown up a lot in this series. I think the Knicks rebounding has given them the 2-1 edge in the series in large part. They had the rebounding edge last night again. It's because really San Antonio is playing with an enormous big and 2 small forwards and 2 guards, right? And so they're a little bit on the small side. And even though the Knicks aren't big, they're bigger. They're bigger at each position, and other than Brunson, and that tends to show up on the glass. Not to mention Josh Hart rebounds bigger than his size anyway, and so that's going to show up for the Knicks as well. And if Wemby's floating on the perimeter, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Castle and Harper and like some of those guys can go get it. Even Keldon can't. They can't. It's just not their strength, right? And I think that has shown up at times. Although I did make the note, and you might have been even in the room, like when De'Aaron Fox takes that shot. If it doesn't go in, Wemby's going to dunk it home because Cat sort of lost him in the, hey, I'm trying to make sure he doesn't get the ball. Like Wemby's got a clear run at the basket, and with his pterodactyl arms, he was going to get the rebound and put it back anyway.
And Mark and I have talked about how Cat's been able to take Wemby off the dribble. Like Cat's made Wemby look very slow, and yesterday the roles kind of reversed. I thought Wemby was making Cat look pretty slow.
Interesting. Well, little things matter when the teams are this closely matched up, and that's the way they have been. And there's no real reason to think otherwise. That's why maybe even the home court advantage didn't matter as much last night, and maybe it doesn't matter as much in Game 4, is that they are pretty closely matched up, and the box scores are pretty even. And it's just little things. It's the shots you make when you get the open look. Are you making it? Are you hitting the Hail Mary? And I said jokingly, Clarkson hit a Hail Mary, and then Castle returned the favor later in the game. So even those evened out over the course of time. And the Knicks made it very interesting late with, Brunson hitting a big 3 and then OG hitting a big 3. But the Spurs did close it out. Fox with a big shot, Castle with the big free throws. And now we have a series at 2-1. Game 4 is Wednesday night in the Garden. And I imagine those tickets will even be more expensive for the Knicks and their fan base. Coming up, Marc Daniels will join us next hour. Matt Murschel will join us next hour. And we're going to talk about the sad, sad day that was yesterday for college football in Brendan Sorsby next.
It's almost like an unwritten rule that when you become a father, you become king of the bad dad jokes.
What is Forrest Gump's password? 1 Forrest 1.
Are you ready to laugh? We know at least one person is. Here's CB's dad joke of the day.
Oh, that's so great. I thought you would have liked the joke I had yesterday.
I missed it. I was working.
I'll tell it to you
in the break. All right.
There.
Yeah, we don't need to hear it twice. But no one wants to hear it twice, I'm sure.
But I got another one I think you might like.
All right.
What did one Dorito farmer say to the other Dorito farmer?
What did one Dorito farmer say to the other Dorito farmer? I haven't the slightest idea.
Cool Ranch.
We need to put that joke in a blue bag. 10 o'clock, WYGM Orlando, WJRR, HD2 Cocoa Beach, FM 96.9, The Game, AM 740. We are streaming on YouTube, 96.9 Game On. Mike Tuck, Chris Vasquez, Mark Daniels will join us coming up in about 10 minutes. Our theme today for Double Shot Tuesday.
Got anything gambling related, gambling themed song, gambling title?
50857. You can text in your request. Let me know if Brendan texts in a request. It is sad. It is stunning. It is, I think one of the few times, though, we probably find ourselves rooting against the player in one of these. I think in most cases, even in ones where I don't think it's justified, like I don't think that Trinidad Chambliss should be playing another year of college football for Ole Miss. He's a good kid. He's a great little quarterback, a fun story, fun guy to watch play. But he sort of circumvented the rules and basically made up a medical red shirt that never existed so that he can get this extra year of eligibility.
Well, we're seeing that with all these college athletes now.
I know.
I know the Honey Badger's trying to go back to LSU.
Yes, I saw that. Tyrone Matthew yesterday said, I only played 2 years. I can go back and play, right? It's only so long. I mean, we've seen other guys try this, right? We had an NBA G leaguer that's trying to get back and play college basketball.
Yeah.
Right? Why not? You can make potentially millions of dollars for 1 year.
Isn't there a former baseball player that wants to go back and play college football or college basketball?
We've always sort of Drew Henson, Chris Winkie. That's been a thing that I don't think anyone's looked on the wrong way because it's a different sport, right? You becoming a professional in one doesn't necessarily influence the other. And even though it's odd, and certainly we can all look at it, hey, should a 25-year-old or a 27-year-old be playing with 18-year-olds?
No,
probably not. But I don't know. We don't always look through it. I don't know why not, because if you never went to college, why wouldn't you be able to, regardless of your age? I work at a college. We welcome in people of all ages. I get plenty of guys that are in their 30s, even 40s, that are looking at it.
But
now, I know there's no sports involved, but there's no there. I don't know. Should there be a rule against going back at that point? Point I'm trying to make, though, is we're usually for the player. We're always against the NCAA. It's become the go-to. It's the NCAA's fault. They're evil. But if you haven't seen in recent years here, and certainly with this, that the NCAA is attempting to do the right thing, and that we are doing and enabling those that are breaking rules to do everything possible to work around it because it benefits your own self-interest as a coach, as a school, as a conference, and especially as it concerns the money-making effect, we can talk about wins or losses. The greater good here is that Texas Tech, through winning, benefits by making a lot of money. That's the reason why no one at Texas Tech has shut this down. No one at the Big 12 has shut this down. Nobody at Cincinnati did. Nobody at Indiana did. The adults have continued to enable this story to go on to the point where yesterday a court has heard this temporary injunction, which is what it is. It's not a ruling that says Sorsby's all well and good. It's an injunction that has been put in place that, based on the dates of it, should allow him to play most, if not all, of the season unless something happens in the next 24, 48 week. I don't know. I don't know where we're heading with that part of it. That's sort of the mystery that we're getting the visceral reaction, CV, of other conferences, of coaches within the conference, and of other schools who are now saying, hey, don't schedule Texas Tech. We have to reconsider what we're looking at down the road if they're going to allow this to happen. Sorsby, it starts with Sorsby. Don't get me wrong here. But it really is about the adults in the room that are not making adult decisions and are now allowing the kid to get away with something because he's claiming something else in the courtroom.
I mean, this is going beyond even college. I mean, this is starting to happen in high school, in middle school, in pee-wee leagues where if you can make money on it, if you can win at any cost, it does not matter.
Right.
Winning and money are the only things that matter in this world, and it's becoming very apparent. We don't give a damn about the rules. We don't give a damn who we hurt, how we hurt them, who it impacts, anything. Can you play? Do I win with you? And how much money are you going to make me? That is the only thing that matters in today's world. And it's so frustrating. And clearly nobody cares about making it right. Nobody cares about making it right.
Not yet. And even if they do now, that's good. Don't get me wrong, but it's a little late.
No, nobody cares at this point.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
I said it earlier, like it says a lot when now the public is fully behind the NCAA, who is typically the piñata for anything that goes wrong in college athletics. Marc Daniels will join us next. I don't know, CV, when this story broke yesterday, I imagine you guys had a little bit of a time to react to this because it was in the morning, but I don't know how much time you had to react to this yesterday.
Sorsby?
Yeah.
Oh, we got into it.
Okay. Yeah. I knew it was in the morning, but I wasn't sure how much time you had to invest into it. So I'm sure Marc has slept on it and thought of a lot more he'd like to say. And we have a lawyer coming on in the 11 o'clock hour as well, a former lawyer who will give us some insight into how we ended up where we've ended up. Don't go anywhere. Marc Daniels joins us on his show, The Beat of Sports, next.
Utah, Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma. From somewhere else in the country, let's welcome the host of the Beat of Sports as a guest on his own show. Here's Marc Daniels.
Beat of Sports, FM 96.9, The Game, AM 740, online, streaming at YouTube as well, 96.9 Game On. Chris Vasquez, Mike Tuck, in for Marc Daniels, who now joins us on the phone, who is just away for the day. Mark, there's plenty to chew on with Brendan Sorsby, and we'll do that momentarily. But I will say that these NBA finals have been very fun to watch. Not stressful on my end, probably less so on your end, but wow, I guess just your initial thoughts to what we saw last night in Game 3.
I can't do this fan stuff.
It's tough, man, isn't it? It is tough.
I'm so miserable today. I stayed up till 3:30 last night.
Woo.
I'm just I don't know how fans do this. You know, I can call a game and be emotionally involved, but I'm working. But to sit there helpless and watch, I am sick. So I either need the Knicks win the next 2 games, or of course after last night's loss, I'm convinced they're going to lose the next 3, and the series is over. So I don't know how fans do this. I am just sick. And on top of that, Wemby should be at Rikers Island right now. They did the Jalen Brunson.
Oh, stop it! They were just showing that on TV again. It's
absolute assault of a man, and
it's a foul. But man, can
multi-game suspension at least.
Right.
Probably a year suspension. In fact, he should be forced to play quarterback at Texas Tech next year.
I'm surprised the president didn't step in and have him jailed for it. I mean,
listen, I think the Knicks lost for 3 reasons last night.
Okay.
One, Wemby was the Wemby that San Antonio needed, and they did some things that made him unstoppable. Then on top of that, he hit those couple threes that you're just like, okay, come on, okay. 2, I thought guard-on-guard play, the Spurs were better last night. They were better defensively. I think that they were more effective on both ends of the floor. The ability of getting uncontested layups and even contested layups, I thought the Spurs guards were better. And the third reason, I think the Knick role players were not as effective, which it's not just guys off the bench. Mikal Bridges is in foul trouble. He's a non-factor in the game. They didn't get the Deuce McBride, even though Shaman hit a couple of shots. I don't think their role players did the same things that they needed to do. So give the Spurs credit. The one thing I'll also add, Mike, and I'm not even, joking aside about the Wemby thing, the Knicks didn't lose because of fouls last night. You know what bothers me? And this is across the board, and maybe I'm the old guy. Like, I want both teams last night, I want every NBA player, just go back and watch the game that you just played and realize, one, not just the whining and complaining, how fundamentally flawed people are defensively. Like, guys get shocked when they commit that foul with their arms. Like, you can't throw your arms down on somebody. That's a foul.
Mm-hmm.
When you get beat because you're not, positioned defensively, and you get beaten a first step and you're trailing, that's a foul. Like, NBA players today are incredible athletes. The skill set is off the chart, but their defense most of the time, and these are 2 pretty good defensive teams, are so fundamentally flawed. Like, you're shocked. Why'd you call that a foul? Because you can't chop down on arms. That's a foul.
Mm-hmm. No, I know it's the margins are so small. I mean, that's the incredible thing. I know the first game ended up with a 10-point spread, but it was a 1-point game with 2 minutes to go. And all these games have come down to little things. And, shot making's part of that. Offensive rebounding, I think, has been huge for the Knicks in this series that has turned into second chance opportunities for them. But last night, I think Wemby in the second half, playing him more on Karl Anthony Towns was an interesting switch. And I'm curious how the Knicks will react to that, because it made a big difference in getting them back into a game where it looked like with that surge you guys had, the Knicks had before halftime, like, all right, here we go again. And you had that feeling just because of the way the first 2 games went that was going to carry the day. But San Antonio, and they seemed to respond defensively. I don't know if it was they were certainly coming out on shooters a lot harder. Like, I thought that their rotations off of screens and stuff like that, and getting back out to shooters was much better in the second half. But it has been compelling as a neutral observer who is not stressed out in watching this series. But I picked the Spurs. I'd like the Knicks to win, frankly, for you and KV and the fan base that has suffered for a long time. I have been thoroughly entertained with what I've seen so far.
Well, the beauty of a 7-game series is the adjustments that you make, and I think you've seen that. Last night for Cat, 3 stupid fouls. That's the difference. In games 1 and 2, he had 1 stupid foul. He had 3 stupid fouls last night, meaning you fouled him, you were in the wrong position, and you were late getting back. You can't do that, obviously, in game number 4. The other thing, and I'll be curious what the Knicks do, because, and I know the inside the NBA guys reverted back to this, said, well, the Knicks ended up being the old Knicks of last year with too much dribbling of Jalen Brunson. It's partly true because the way they jumped him defensively in the second half, and those are really good on-ball defenders. I'll be curious what the Knicks do in game number 4. You're not going to take the ball out of his hands, but you may take the ball out of his hands coming up the court and having him come off the screen to get the ball and begin your offense. But I thought the Spurs did a really good job last night of frustrating Brunson, particularly in the second half, when a lot of times they went into their offense with about 4 or 5 seconds on the shot clock. And that's a really good defensive team. So, it's part of making adjustments. Forget the crying about the fouls. It is what it is. There are a couple of fouls. I mean, look, Wemby could have and should have been called for a flagrant there, but that's not why they lost the game. And it's not like he was going to be ejected. They lost the game because they didn't shoot the ball particularly well. The Spurs played a great defense. Wemby was Wemby. And they hit a couple of big shots late that they didn't in game 1 and 2. The 3 by Castle, the shot by De'Aaron Fox, they're huge. If they miss those, the Knicks probably have a chance to win the basketball game. Just like in games 1 and 2, the Knicks did hit some shots. So, we'll get at least to game 5. And as I said yesterday, so much pressure on the Knicks to win game 3 because of exactly what happened. The Spurs won the way they won. Now massive pressure on the Knicks to win game number 4. But that's why we play 7 games in a series.
Right. And for those that were thinking Knicks in 6, like a lot of people have thought, it sets up that way if you're able to take care of business in the next one, because then you have a game to play with at San Antonio and get back and have a chance to close things out at home. Next game is on Wednesday night. Now, I'm aware CV said you guys had a chance to react to this yesterday morning with the Brendan Sorsby news coming down. I wonder, with a night to sleep on it and to read more about it, where you sit today, and how, if any way, your mind is shifted in what has happened now.
So the news broke yesterday of the initial ruling, and then I watched as the reaction unfolded. Some of it was typical, but then it became a little bit of a wow, particularly when you're hearing about reports of conferences wanting to not allow their members to play Texas Tech, and that's all well and good. But Mike, this is the biggest moment in Brett Yormark's tenure as commissioner of the Big 12. His place in history of the conference is forever set because the media deal that he got when people didn't think he'd get the media deal that he did, that cements his place in the league history. This is the biggest moment of leadership, though, for Brett Yormark. It doesn't matter what the SEC and Big Ten think about scheduling Texas Tech in the future. It matters what Brett Yormark decides to do in a role of leadership. I don't know if he has 15 members. He needs 3/4 of the members to vote to give him the authority to basically take action against Texas Tech. My guess is today he would get that. What action does he take within the bylaws? Does he do something to tell Texas Tech, if you play him, I'll ban you? Or does he, suspend Sorsby? Texas Tech clearly made their statement that they're willing to fight this in court. I don't think they care about the villain role that they're being portrayed as. And it's going to be very interesting. Now, to me, the narrative will shift to what Brett Yormark decides to do, and he's torn. But as I've said in recent years, the leaders of college athletics are incredibly hypocritical. They complain about a system, but the moment to lead, they kind of back off and shy away from it. This is going to be an interesting time. Brett Yormark knows the value of Texas Tech in a somewhat clean football world, meaning if he looks at his realistic playoff teams, they're one of them. Does he take action to eliminate what might be the most realistic chance of getting deep into the playoffs? I think in a moral way, you're saying it doesn't matter. You need to take action because of what your role is supposed to be. We'll see what he does. I think the next 72 hours, 96 hours is going to be really interesting to what position that they take. In some ways, Mike, and I admit I'm kind of jumping out there, Texas Tech internally may be surprised at the overall reaction, and they may want Yormark to get them off the hook, meaning if Yormark takes action and suspends Sorsby or says if you play him, you're ineligible, they may then be able to go publicly, hey, it's wrong, and privately go, great, they bailed us out as opposed to us sitting the kid. So there's a little bit of a PR thing going on there because I'm not quite sure they anticipated the reaction that they're getting. And it's one thing to say, well, we love the tough guy, almost like the U in the 90s, but this is a little bit different. The U in the 90s was perceived to be the best football program in the country. Well, Texas Tech has paid their way to get there. Not quite sure it's the same reaction. So it's going to be really interesting. I said yesterday, people can scream at the NCAA all you want. What did you want them to do? How is this the NCAA's fault? They're trying to enforce the rules that members agreed upon. And one school said, I don't care about your rules. We'll go to court. We'll find a judge that's going to rule in our favor. And again, the biggest thing about that ruling yesterday, and the judge didn't do this by accident, the judge purposely scheduled the appeal in 27 after the football season, which basically means barring something else from a federal level, he's going to play if Texas Tech wants him to play. It's up to Brett Yormark now to decide if he want to enforce his bylaws or not. I don't know.
It's such a failure on every adult that we are failing the person who made the mistake in Brendan Sorsby and allowing for him to avoid the consequences of his actions. And the failure, it could be pointed at a lot of people. The judge, I don't know how in right mind you come to that conclusion, regardless of what the case presented is, how you don't see through what they're trying to do, how you allow for an appeal not to be heard, because of what you said after the court date being filed later on. So you know what you're doing when you do that. And then for the coaching staff at Tech, for the administrators at Tech, for the Big 12 as a whole, and frankly, I'll throw Cincinnati and Indiana in the bunch as well. Like, I don't know why no adult is stepping forward and saying to what you said, just do the right thing. And it's very obvious what the right thing is here. This is almost a unanimous reaction. Even if there's a lot of people that want to kill the messengers that are, saying that, hey, we don't want to play Tech and, Georgia and the Big Ten and some of those discussions. Yes, they've had their own mistakes, right? That doesn't mean that their message now is wrong. And the message now should be this kid should not be eligible to play college football this season. And somebody needs to he can be eligible. Somebody needs to make the decision. You can't play. You made a mistake and there are consequences for your mistake. And everyone's throwing their hands up, like Cody Campbell's like, yeah, I'm doing all I can do to stop this. What are you talking about?
Right. Yeah. Well,
what are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and then he wrote the op-ed in the USA Today, like, well, this is why we got to do this. Like, come on. It's a good time for you to sit this one out and just be the cheerleader at Texas Tech. And if you want to fund this legal case. But, Mike, you're right. And you've said this. I've said this. It's not a question about the adults in the room stepping forward. It's that there's always someone that goes, we'll just go to court. We'll just go to court and we'll get the ruling. And that's why it drives me crazy when people just want to yell and beat up the NCAA. What did you want them to do yesterday? They made him ineligible twice.
Mm-hmm.
Twice.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to enforce their rules. If the members that agree to the bylaws to join the NCAA don't want to enforce the rules, what do you want them to do? They've done everything they can. It is time for the adults, such as the president of Texas Tech, to tell Brendan Sorsby, it may be best that you go elsewhere, because at Texas Tech, I don't think this is a place for you. Maybe there's another school that wants to do this, but maybe not us.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. And I don't know if Brendan Sorsby and his people are going to reflect and go, maybe I can be the better person here and say, I don't want to do this. I don't know if he'll go in the supplemental draft and somebody will take him and pay him the kind of money he was going to make. And I'm not the one looking at that kind of money. But you can be a young adult and make a decision like this. You could be a mature adult, whether it be a head coach, an AD, a president, a commissioner, and say, this is not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But the adults left the room a long time ago. There's a lot of people that enjoy the role that includes power, but then just kind of wimp out about this. That's been my scream for years, is stop blaming the four-letter group and start blaming the people that were put in power to enforce rules and hold accountability. But in the end, it's about what's best for me, for my members, and how much money we can make. And don't be fooled for a second. At Texas Tech, this is about the tens of millions of dollars, and depending on who you want to ask to believe, somewhere between 30 to 50 million on the football roster that they believe without this player is a waste of money. That's why they're doing this. And that's why I think it's the biggest moment in Brett Yormark's tenure as commissioner of the Big 12. Quick side note, by the way, when Big 12 football media days happens in Frisco next month, Texas Tech's the same day as UCF. So I'm fired up for that.
Wow. Wow. What a day. What a day. I'm sure this story's going to...
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think that common sense will prevail, but there's a real part of me that says it's not, that they're going to battle in Lubbock. And by the way, do you know, if it goes to the appellate court right now, at least the appellate court that it's assigned to, you know, the four judges where they happen to go to school.
Texas Tech.
Went to Texas Tech.
And you know what's super sad, Mark, and I mean this as sincerely as I can say this. It is almost it is more sad that I almost expect the leaders at Tech and the leaders in the Big 12 to behave this way that would allow it to even reach the point that it would get to a courtroom. But I think it's really sad that we have to look up where judges go to school as if that's going to play an influence, as if it should have any role whatsoever with whatever your background is. You're a judge. It makes me throw up in my mouth. I'm sick. I'm just sick at that thought that we have to look at that. Oh, yeah, they went to Tech, so clearly they're a judge. It shouldn't matter where you went to at all. You had to go to school somewhere. What are we even talking about? How did we get here?
I don't. Well, I know how we got here. I don't know how we get out of here, and that's the sad part about it. And think about this: it's 86 for UCF. It's I think 79. Or I'm sorry, 70 or 80 days till start of college football of that week 0. And these are the headlines. These are the headlines that dominate this sport. And look, I met some nice people in Lubbock over the years, and I enjoy going to Lubbock. And some of them I just wish would look in the mirror when you want to go on and defend it. And my counter, and I spoke to somebody, yesterday, I said, if Arch Manning at Texas had done the same thing, you'd be defending his right to play? Like you'd be defending that? Come on, man. Like what are we doing? Your program should be bigger than the one player. It should be bigger. Right. It should be like, look, you spent a lot of money on other guys. The other freshman quarterback last year that tore the ACL that you hope is back for week number 1. He was pretty good. Don't you have anybody else on the roster?
My guess is that the leaders would be standing up and saying all the right things if it was like a third-string defensive lineman.
Of course. You know that. I know that. Of course. Yeah.
Mark.
Crazy.
Relax a little bit. You got, another
I'm not feeling well today about basketball. Okay.
I know.
I'll go back to that. I can't do this fan thing. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
All right. See you, Mark. Yeah. I'm telling you, man, like I've been blessed by my teams granting me a lot of happiness and winning in my lifetime. The one thing I've constantly told myself the older I've gotten, I think it comes with maturity. And like, I get it. Knicks haven't been in this spot, but it's like, you have to enjoy the winning and not stress about the losing as much. There are bigger things in life. I constantly have to remind myself there are bigger things. You're going to wake up. And I'm not saying Mark's there, but I get it, man. Your heart is going 1,000 miles a minute with everything, and you're stressed out over every call.
When you're that close.
Yeah.
That close.
Right. Yeah. And he said it best. I'm sure there's Knicks fans that are panicking going, oh my God, we're going to lose 4 straight now. Right? And look, it wouldn't even be all that surprising because the games have been close. It could be 3-0 either way, frankly, with the way the series has gone. Matt Murschel, please apologize for making him wait. We'll give him to the top of the hour. He'll get plenty of time to express his opinions and his thoughts on where we are and what he thinks the Big 12 might do to react to this Brendan Sorsby's case next.
This segment is presented by Bowegan's Beer Company.
Green excited.
Let's tackle the latest news from UCF and around the world of college football with the Orlando Sentinel's very own Matt Murschel.
Give him the Heisman now.
Hit up Matt on Twitter at OS Matt Murschel.
Mike Tuckin from Marc Daniels, Beat of Sports on this Tuesday. Matt, apologized for the wait. Marc Daniels and I were both kind of going off on this Brendan Sorsby situation. And I imagine, like most rational human thinkings outside of Lubbock, Texas, you probably feel the same. But let's start, I guess, at the beginning. And what was your reaction to what a court ruled, giving a temporary injunction and for all intents and purposes allowing Brendan Sorsby eligibility for the upcoming season?
Well, I would say it shocked me, but it really didn't, because I felt going in there was probably a good chance they were going to win this case, get the injunction. And I think the sad part about this is, like I said on social media yesterday, I mean, this is an athlete who admitted to gambling on his own team, admitted to gambling at different schools, and yet, we're willing to turn, according to what Texas Tech wants, they want to turn a blind eye to that with the caveat that, well, if he doesn't play, it's going to hurt him mentally, like it's going to hurt his mental health, and I just don't buy that. I'm not trying to I think mental health is a huge part of what's going on, but I think that's not the reason why that they don't they want him to play. I think it's because they want him. They've invested a lot of money in him to play. You know what I mean? And I think it's going to be very interesting over the next week or so how the Big 12 handles this, because this could make or break Big 12 Commissioner Yormark's tenure at the Big 12. You know what I mean? How this decision comes down and how the conference decides to do it. And I'm fascinated that you've got Nebraska and Georgia who are saying they're not going to, schedule games against Texas Tech. And you got the Big Ten meeting about not scheduling games with Texas Tech. And you hear that reports that the Big 12 ADs whose other schools outside of Texas Tech are not going to want to play Texas Tech. And this just seems insane, does it not? That we're talking about this idea of singling one school out and talking about not playing them because of this player. So I think the conference is going to have to really go through a process and settle down and figure out what they want to do, if they're going to handle out some sort of, maybe longer penalty, or try to talk Texas Tech and then not playing in this.
It is incredible, but it's not at the same time, that every adult along the way has sort of thrown their arms up like, yep, our hands are tied. Nothing we can do about this, in evading the consequences for young Brendan Sorsby and the decisions that he has made. And it takes this and almost this visceral reaction of a court's decision for a lot of people to finally, it appears, lose it. And maybe it's the best case scenario. I say, don't shoot the messenger. We can get after Georgia and some of these other schools and decisions they've made in the past, but it doesn't mean they're wrong about their reaction to this. And so that brings us to what you brought up, Matt, is what do you think Tech and anyone that could make a decision at Texas Tech and or Brett Yormark? So it's hard to pass the buck to him, frankly, but that's what essentially, like what you brought up and maybe others will force him to do. What do you think they will do?
I think because the fact that Tech has fought so hard to get the injunction, to get him on the playing field, I don't see them setting him for the year. I don't see them saying, okay, well, he's not going to play for the whole year. We're gonna politely ask him to walk away. I don't think that's the case. They've invested a lot of money in this kid, anywhere from the tune to $4 to $5 million a year. And I know that if as long as they're not gonna, these games don't become, you get in trouble with the NCAA that basically, where they wipe away these wins, that he's playing in, games he's played in. I'm not sure. I can't see Texas Tech saying, okay, we're gonna kind of separate this and move away. I think there's going to be some really long, hard discussions about whether they should or not. And there may be some long, hard discussions with Brendan Sorsby's family and him as his representatives. Really, is this, because believe me, I don't think we're even thinking about this. I heard Mark mention this about going to Big 12 media days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Texas Tech probably more than likely isn't bringing Brendan Sorsby to media days. They're not going to. That would just blow that whole. I mean, it would be the most. Talk about. It would almost remind me of when Deion Sanders showed up.
Uh-huh.
And everyone was just clamoring around Deion. That would be what the Sorsby thing would be. So then you think, okay, well, you get to fall camp. Every time you're talking to, Joey McGuire, the Texas Tech coach, or any of the other players on that team, what do you think the first question is going to be? How is Brendan Sorsby handling?
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes a distraction for the team almost, because all you're going to, and they're probably not going to, I would be shocked if Sorsby talks to the media at least once or twice, the whole year. I mean, because if he's still around, because I just think it becomes that distraction. And I think that's going to be the bigger question is do you want something like this hanging over your program for the whole year, or do you find a way to separate yourself? And I said this earlier to somebody that one of the things I have that bothers me about this case is this is the perfect blueprint for college athletes to start gambling. I mean, this is the whole right now. I mean, because if I'm an athlete and I want to go gamble and I get caught, my whole thing is, okay, fine, I'll sue you, and I'm sure the court will agree with me, and I'll be able to find a way to get back in. And I know schools have things in place to make sure that they monitor this stuff, but it's to be kind of hypocritical all of a sudden, unless they find a way to do some overall changes to make this, that sports gambling has gotten. This was the concern we had several years ago about it, and now all of a sudden we're in this boat where it's front and center, and how do we deal?
Yeah, we've allowed for this loophole, or at least this judge has to exist now, that it still, again, blows me away, but doesn't blow me away. Like, all right, so the kid needs to be, part of the organization for his mental health, that kind of thing, right? That's what the messaging was. All right.
Yeah.
All right. If you're Texas Tech and the coaching staff, can you bench him? Like, he's still part of the team, right? Is that not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make I love that they throw it. Oh, he's suspended for the first 2 games of the season, as if so. You're acknowledging he deserves a punishment.
Yes, exactly. And then I love the Texas Tech side saying, well, the 2 games is clearly enough. There's a punishment there, right? It's clearly enough, right? 2 games. No, 2 games of meaningless football games don't mean anything to Texas Tech. And I think the thing about this too is, as we get on the bigger picture, is the idea that, if Texas Tech were to say, okay, fine, and Sorsby plays this year, let's say Texas Tech loses one of those 2 games or loses a couple games early on and they're out of the college football playoff picture. Then you start looking around going, was it really worth it? You know what I mean? Was it worth it to get to this point to have all this hanging over our program? And now we're at the spot that, we're not even going to be contending for a national title. I mean, I feel like if you felt like this team was really capable of winning a national title, I see why you're fighting so hard, but it's insane. It's crazy right now, and it's just kind of indicative of where the sport has gone lately. And everyone's looking around for someone to come magically step in and fix it, and it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even you can look to Congress, you can look to the government, you can say, help us. It's not going to happen quickly, no matter what. And now players and everyone else have found loopholes. Agents have found loopholes through the law. And basically, you can allow this kind of stuff to happen. So now it's going to come. That's what I mean. It's going to come down to the Big 12. What does the Big 12 really kind of sit down and say about this? And can they find a reasonable, a settlement where maybe they can, that Sorsby, either like you said, sits maybe for the whole year, and he sits out a year, and maybe but he doesn't have another year of eligibility, so it's not like he could sit a year and then come back. I mean, and then how does this impact Texas Tech in a sense of money-wise? Texas Tech has an agreement with them that's supposed to be over close to $4 million.
Mm-hmm.
Do they owe him that? Or does this situation nullify that agreement? Plus, he owes money to Cincinnati. Cincinnati's still suing him, for his exit. So there's money tied up in all this too as well, whether or not how this all works out when it gets said and done.
It is unbelievable on so many levels. I know at Orlando Sentinel and OrlandoSentinel.com, you have it is the off season. We got to come up with storylines, and you wrote about UCF's running back room and finding that guy or multiple guys. For those that haven't clicked and read, what can they find out there?
Yeah, it talks about how essentially, UCF had to kind of rebuild the running backs room. Miles Montgomery and Jaden Nixon were the 2 starters last year, and they're gone. And UCF in the offseason brought in a couple of transfers, and Duke Watson, a really talented running back from Louisville, and Landon Chambers, a guy from Central Arkansas who's kind of a bigger back. And really kind of how they're developing this room. Scott Frost thinks it's one of the deepest rooms he's got on the team, and really excited about them. The potential to have each of these guys they have in the group is able to do some different things. Tavian Swint was injured last year. He was a highly signed recruit here locally that is supposed to be back healthy this year. Ejben Adede, who came in last year and kind of helped out towards the end. He's showed some explosive potential as well. So this is a group right now that I think they're very excited about. They've got some young freshmen, Kosh Baker and Arthur Lewis the fourth, that they feel like can step up and make some plays. And we know that Scott Frost has done good things with some of the running backs in his past. You look go back to the 2016 and 2017 seasons, and Adrian Killings and Otis Anderson and guys like that who had really successful careers, with under Frost. So this is a unit I think that is going to be very interesting to see how they kind of step up, and they're going to need to step up. I think take some pressure off the quarterback position and help this offense kind of go.
Yeah, it starts with the running game, right? Makes the passing game a lot more potent, especially if you can get explosives out of that phase of the game, which we know Scott Frost wants to do. As always, Matt, it's a pleasure talking with you. I am sure this will be a topic for you next week as well to digest.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to be talking about this for a while. It's not going to go away.
We almost forgot about the 24-game playoff, right? That's old news.
Exactly. that all goes away. So let's see what happens. This is what makes me laugh about off season is what off season. We're in June and we're talking about stuff that's going to. I mean, this is what the sport has changed over the last few years.
No question about it. Thanks, Matt.
All right, take care.
The news coming up next year on the Beat of Sports.
Let's really do the news.
Yes.
Now it is time to do the news.
But now it's time for the news.
It is time for the news. 11 o'clock, WYGM Orlando, WJRR HD2 Cocoa Beach, FM 96.9 The Game, and AM 740. Mike Tuck, Chris Vasquez. Time for the news, starting with last night. The San Antonio Spurs halved the Knicks' NBA Finals lead, now at 2-1 with a 115-111 victory. Victor Wembanyama went 11 for 18 from the field, scored 32 points, stuffed the box score, and led San Antonio to a road victory against the Knicks. Game 3 is set up for Wednesday night as the Knicks try to maintain that home court advantage they went and took for the first 2 games in San Antonio. The Stanley Cup final resumes this evening, still in Vegas. They got an extra day of rest, which what could go wrong in Las Vegas with an extra day of rest? You want to talk about unbelievable, though. I mean, as good as these NBA finals have been, the Stanley Cup final has probably been even more compelling with the wild swings back and forth. No lead is safe, which you rarely think of in hockey. But Vegas holding the 2-1 lead, trying to take a commanding 3-1 series lead back to Carolina with their game on deck this evening. Apparently, Jacoby Brissett is done hoping for more money. Probably not, but at least he's reporting to camp for the Arizona Cardinals as their presumptuous starting quarterback was looking for a contract more in lines with that of a traditional NFL starter. And that was falling on deaf ears. And perhaps Carson Beck throwing it pretty well at voluntary minicamp has forced him into coming back, realizing I might not have a job if I don't.
Well, I mean, he's only making what, 6.25. I say only.
Yes,
but
yes,
6.25 million. And what's the fine if you're skipping these events?
Oh, this is voluntary now, but you got
mandatory minicamp.
Mandatory is coming up, and yes,
you can't skip them.
Yeah, especially again, you're not making top dollar, and so and honestly, like I get his argument, but read the room, man. Like your team's clearly trying to not win as many games this year by going with you at quarterback. There's a reason they didn't necessarily seek out anyone else, right, or draft anyone else.
Well, he felt, and I mean, he's not wrong. He did play well. It's not his fault that the team.
He put up good stats for a team that was bad. Yeah, I hear you. He's a good soldier. Yeah. He's bounced around, but he's had moderate success everywhere he's been. He's proven himself to be an NFL quarterback, just not one you want to start and win games with.
But you don't blame him for trying to get more money while
No, I don't blame him at all. It's just sort of like, again, like the Cardinals shouldn't bend on this, frankly. He's under contract. If they had him for less, they wouldn't be bending on it.
Right.
Let alone what they have him for. Because they know what the mission is. It's to go in, hopefully entertain your fans a little bit, hand the ball off to your first round pick a little bit, probably give the Carson Beck a chance by the end of the season to help ensure you lose more games so that you're set up to draft whoever emerges from next year's crop of quarterbacks to draft. And Arizona is right there with Miami as the best odds to draft number 1 overall next year.
Throw the Jets in there too.
I think the Jets are better than both.
Really?
Roster-wise, yeah. I think the Jets are much better than both.
So Geno Smith is not the one to take them to the promised land?
No. Well, the promised land of perhaps finding the next quarterback, yes. I think I've used that joke before, but I do think the Jets roster is top down a little bit better, but that's
a debate for another day.
Yeah, it's almost not a debate worth having. The 2 worst teams in the league, arguably, or 2 of the 5 worst. Like at some point, we can kind of like go, all right, these are the 4 or 5 teams, right? And that's great thing for the sport, right? That you can probably identify before the year starts. Only 3, 4, 5 teams that you think have no chance to make the playoffs, kind of.
Yeah.
Right? Like most teams, frankly, teams surprise you all the time in the NFL.
For sure.
Last place to first place is a thing. It happens every year. Happened a couple times last year. So anything's possible. Winning the Super Bowl doesn't seem possible for any of those teams, though.
No, that's true.
I think that's a fair point
yes.
To be made. And then, of course, the big news that we've been talking about for much of the day as a court has ruled in favor of Brendan Sorsby that he has a temporary injunction, which would allow him to play the upcoming season. An appeal has been made, and depending on how that appeal is heard, it could affect when he potentially could play this next season. It is a little bit complicated and convoluted, but I will read exactly what is said because let's not misconstrue what the judge has ruled. I'm not justifying it. The last thing I'm doing. But I want to, Judge Ken Curry said that Sorsby and his lawyer demonstrated that he will suffer probable, imminent, and irreparable injury if he cannot play, and said that he would miss out on coaching, camaraderie, and training, and he wouldn't be able to build the necessary skills to help himself and Texas Tech's team if he didn't receive this injunction, this coinciding with him overcoming the gambling addiction and the mental health associated with it and how it would be affected. I don't think there's a parent that would ever fall for this poppycock of a reasoning. Imagine,
well, I don't know,
imagine committing any crime, and this isn't even a crime, but it's a rule, and then going, hey, if you punish me, I'm going to be hurting. And that's not fair to me. I teach. Imagine me giving somebody a C that they've earned and then them appealing and going, hey, it's really hurt my feelings. It would make me feel a lot better if I got an A. I think that's what we should do here. It's not that you didn't. It's not that you're arguing that you didn't deserve the C. You're arguing that it's going to affect your mental health and how you're going to overcome the gambling addiction. And he said, yeah, thumbs up. That works. Good argument. What?
I wonder if the judge has kids and if that excuse would work.
Right?
If that excuse,
right? It's mind blowing.
I'm not going to go any further than that.
It's mind blowing.
It's ridiculous.
So
you can do whatever you want, regardless of if it's against the rules or not. But if it hurts your feelings to suffer the consequences for your actions, it's okay. We'll give you a pass. You can still play. It's okay. That's what we're doing. Great role model. Great role model.
We will be joined coming up in our next segment by Sam Hurlich, who is a former lawyer and works at Boise State. And I will ask all the lawyery questions of him. I feel like I have pretty good understanding here, but he's going to put it in much better terms for you to understand exactly what happened, how it happened, and what will happen next. So don't go anywhere. That's next here on the Beat of Sports. It's our Double Shot Tuesday. Double Shot Tuesday. Why is that? Double Shot Tuesday here on 96.9 The Game. My computer's talking to me for some reason. I have no idea why. Honestly, it's talking to me. I was like, why is it talking to me? I'm Mike Tuckin for Marc Daniels today. Gambling theme today because of the news with Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby. We brought in an expert here to answer some of the hard-to-answer questions. Sam Ehrlich is the Boise State College of Business and Economics assistant professor, a former lawyer, and we really appreciate the time on a frustrating day for a lot of college football fans. Sam, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, so simply put, how did Brendan Sorsby's lawyer, Jeffrey Kessler, win this appeal?
It's hard to know exactly just because there hasn't been a written opinion from the judge, and there likely won't be just because of the intricacies of this Texas state court system. But we know from looking at the complaint, we know from listening to, various kind of reporting on kind of the hearings and kind of what was going on in the case, that Jeff Kessler really framed this as a mental health issue. He brought in experts to talk about gambling addiction as a mental health issue, and really kind of pointed to the NCAA's statements, various statements, in their bylaws and really everywhere else, talking about their commitment to athlete mental health and promoting athlete mental health. And he really framed this as punishing Sorsby for a mental health illness, a mental health issue that he, of course, spent 35 days in rehab for. So definitely kind of by framing it as a mental health issue, by saying you did not do what you needed to do, NCAA, by giving at some sort of latitude, by not considering it for a hardship waiver, then you are effectively punishing him for this mental illness.
So Judge Ken Curry, who presided over the 99th District Court in Lubbock, Texas, has ruled, and I quote, demonstrated that he will suffer a probable, imminent, and irreparable injury if he cannot play on Sorsby's behalf. How does that argument hold weight against what we know to be sort of black and white rules regarding gambling?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
No, that's okay. I said, how does it, because this is the part I think we're struggling with. We hear what the argument is, and we hear what the judge says when he says, I quote, demonstrated that he will suffer a probable and imminent and irreparable injury if he cannot play. How does that hold up as an argument? Me saying like, yeah, I know I did wrong, but I'm going to be sad. I'm going to be upset if I don't get my way here. How does that get through a judge as a reasonable argument when we know that gambling is pretty much black and white in the way the NCAA has ruled on it?
Yeah, that's the really interesting and fascinating part about the story, because for so long, gambling has been this hard line in the sand, and not just for the NCAA, but for sports in general. And again, without a written opinion, it's hard to know exactly what the judge is thinking here. But I think looking at this in terms of, well, we live in a new era here. We live in a new world where athletes are getting paid millions of dollars. Sorsby reportedly is getting $4 million from Texas Tech to play. And, these decisions by the NCAA to suspend the player have really real life consequences here. It's not just keeping him away from the game. It's not just, being able to be with his teammates. It's all about real life money. And that's a big deal. That's why a lot of these players have been winning these eligibility cases, because they're able to say, yes, I don't have a right to play sports, but you're taking away all this kind of money from me, and you're not really doing, according to these players, not doing your due diligence and making sure these rules are being applied fairly and clearly. So, of course, I think in this situation, a lot of people would push back and say, no, yeah, the rules were applied fairly and clearly, and it's hard to argue with that.
I don't know the first thing about Judge Ken Curry, but I imagine he's worldly enough to understand the consequences of this decision, and also to be aware of, by setting a trial date in 2027 after the season concludes, what he is setting this up for. So you tell me from that vantage point how a trial date can be set for after the season.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Judge Curry is a longtime judge, someone who's been in the system for a long time. He actually he actually retired, and it was kind of a rover in case situations where, like originally the judge who was originally assigned to this case recused himself because he was a, Texas Tech alum, Texas Tech booster, all that. So very professional judge, and clearly a judge who knows the ramifications of this decision, and still feels he made the right decision in the context of, kind of this one-to-one situation. And as far as setting the trial date, I mean, there's a lot that needs to happen before trial. There's a extensive discovery period. There's, motions for summary judgment, or whatever the equivalent is in Texas. There's a lot that needs to happen. So setting the trial date that far in advance, I mean, for one, actually looking at this in comparison to other cases, it's actually pretty quick. But also at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter necessarily. If this case is never going to trial, that's not going to be the issue here. It's going to, the NCAA has already indicated that they're going to appeal the case, and that's going to push back the trial date even further. And that appeal is really what's going to matter, because at the end of the day, the injunction is going to, because the trial date is set so late, the injunction is going to cover this entire year. So even if it does get to trial, I imagine Sorsby will just file a motion to dismiss because he doesn't necessarily care about the outcome anymore.
Sam Ehrlich, a former lawyer, Boise State College of Business and Economics, joining us here on the Beat of Sports. I'm Mike Tuckin for Mark Daniels today. A notice of appeal has been filed. What does, for the rest of us that don't understand, an accelerated appeal mean in this case?
Yeah, it means that the NCAA is going to is really going to be trying to ask the Court of Appeal in Texas to make this as quick as possible. They want, if they can, to get a ruling before the season starts, or at least before it really gets deep into the season, where Sorsby really gets to take advantage of this injunction. And because I think if you look at it, the NCAA, throughout all these eligibility cases, and there's been nearly 100 of them over the past year and a half, there's been 2 of them that have actually been filed in Texas State Court before. One involving Texas A&M basketball player Rashawn Agee, another involving Indiana football player Lewis Moore. Both of them were able to be, they got injunctions. They were both appealed by the NCAA. One was issued in October. The other was issued in November. And they were appealed around the same time. And we're sitting here in June, and neither of them have a decision yet. So, Moore and Agee were able to play the entire season without, having the appeal decided. And at this point, they're arguing that the appeals are moot. It doesn't even matter because because they've already played their entire season. And the NCAA very clearly does not want that to happen here. They want to, as much as they can, push the Court of Appeals to do this case sooner, and presumably to overrule this case sooner. Whether they'll be able to do that, though, is it's a difficult question, because courts tend to work on their own schedule.
Right.
Even if they do grant this, grant the expedited appeal, even if they do agree to expedite it, it still doesn't mean. I mean, it's still going to take months.
So what if, and I've read about it, but it does seem like it could be resolved earlier than after this season. What would they need to do to try to move it up to a point where there actually could be consequences faced for Sorsby and Texas Tech here?
I'm not sure there is a way for them to move it up. Again, courts tend to work on their own schedule. So it'll really be up to the court to say, yes, we are going to hear this very quickly. Yes, we are going to do something very quickly about this. There might be a situation where the NCAA could try to file a motion with the Court of Appeals to stay the injunction, essentially stop the injunction from happening while the appeal is being heard. I think if that happens, it'll be a really good indication of what the Court of Appeals is thinking. But we'll have to see it. It's not something they tried to do in the Agee or the Moore cases, but they also didn't try to go for an expedited appeal in either of those cases either. But I think they clearly see this case as different, and for good reason.
I saw yesterday you tweeted out, I see we're in the why don't we just violate court orders phase of eligibility injunction blowback. I guess my question, because a lot of the conversation has shifted today to the reactions of those that are in the Big 12, other member institutions and other conferences. So fill me in. What decision could be made to try to keep Sorsby out that would or would not violate court orders?
It's really difficult to say, because I think it depends a lot on how the judge interprets it. And, from there, if the judge decides to interpret it pretty broadly, what maybe the schools individually, or maybe what the Big 12 conference or what other conferences kind of argue to say this injunction doesn't apply to us, because the injunction applies to the NCAA. And I think there's an argument to be made that the NCAA is the schools and vice versa. And, it's all the kind of this all-encompassing entity. But at the same time, I think it's also a very reasonable argument, maybe even a better argument, to say, no, these are separate entities. They're entities that are not bound by this injunction. Just because the NCAA has to allow Sorsby to play doesn't mean that we have to play Texas Tech, or we can't kind of pressure them into not playing Sorsby.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I think the Big 12 is going to look into, clearly they're looking into what they can do, and maybe I don't know if they're going to go so far as to expel Texas Tech from the conference. That would be a pretty extreme thing to do, but they could look into ways where maybe disqualifying Texas Tech from the Big 12 championship, or maybe doing what a few conferences have done, not in these kind of situations, but in when schools decide to leave the conference for another conference, and maybe take them off television for the year, or do something to try to mitigate this and try to pressure Texas Tech into just deciding voluntarily not to play Sorsby. But you're getting into real sticky situations here where you're even if you aren't a party to this injunction, you are essentially asking Texas Tech to break this injunction, to find this injunction, or to act in a way against this injunction.
Mm-hmm. All right, one minute before I let you go, and I really appreciate your time here today, Sam. What, if anything, does this ruling mean to the bigger picture with gambling in the NCAA?
I think it definitely creates a perception that the NCAA's gambling rules have been weakened, and I'm not confident to say I don't think I'd be able to say that the perception is even wrong. I think a lot of players can look at this and say, for one, if for the various players that, like Iowa State players who got suspended previously, I think a lot of them are looking at this and saying, well, why was this different? And well, the reason why it's different is because they didn't file a lawsuit, I guess. But at the same time, I will say, I think the perception that this is going to create new precedent, that this is going to make it so that the NCAA can never enforce their gambling rules again, that just isn't the case. Precedent in law is kind of a funny thing, where I think we have a tendency to think about, like, the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court issues a decision, that changes the law. That makes the law different. It makes the application of the law different across the country. But this is one district court in Texas. We may get 50 more lawsuits like this by 50 more players who gamble, but it would not surprise me if all 50 of them lose. And it's not a situation where judges have to follow this decision. They could find that their situations are different, or they could just disagree with the decision. It's what we call in law persuasive precedent, not binding precedent, where judges can use it to support their decision, but they don't have to. So this could be an isolated blip in the radar in terms of kind of the larger legal landscape, but I think it does also very much kind of create questions about how enforceable these rules are, and very fair questions at that.
Sam, I really appreciate the time, and if hopefully for a lot in our audience, clearing up this news yesterday that has most people sort of aghast at the decision that was made in favor of Sorsby. Thank you again, Sam.
Of course, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Yep, Sam Ehrlich, a Boise State College of Business and Economics, a former lawyer, explaining how we could end up here, and it still is hard to believe that we've ended up here. I'm guessing, just guessing, this might end up in Mark on the mark and off the mark, or what do we call it?
Tuck it or untuck it.
Tuck it or untuck it. Coming up next.
It's a Tuesday staple on the beat of sports. On the mark, off the mark. Presented by Bowegan's Beer Company. Bowegan's, recrafting perceptions.
All right, we're changing it up from on the mark, off the mark to tuck it or untuck it. And of course, the big story from yesterday and today, Judge Ken Curry of the 99th District Court of Lubbock granting the injunction that will allow Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby to play college football this upcoming season. He will be suspended the first 2 games of the season, Abilene Christian and Oregon State, before making his debut in the Big 12 opener against Houston. This continues a trend of rules being broken, bent, or manipulated, the NCAA getting sued, and players getting what they want despite rules already being agreed upon. Because of the ruling, Big 12 ADs have had, quote, serious talks, according to Ross Stellinger's reporting, about not playing Texas Tech. We've seen Nebraska and Georgia already making sure that they do not schedule any future games with Texas Tech, and I applaud it. Good for them. We just had Sam Ehrlich on, who said that he doesn't believe that this will set a precedent, but would you tuck it or untuck it if I said that because the first case of this kind, the high-profile athlete in this era, in today's day and age, is now out of the way or currently, undergoing, that it does clear the way for a very bad precedent to be set, that these high-profile athletes can gamble if they want and not suffer any consequences.
Yes, unfortunately, I do think we have to tuck that one.
Chris is right.
I think what the problem becomes, and look, there should always be an appeal process in place because Lord knows in most of these cases, which I think is what makes this one especially unique, is we tend to side on the player's side. And like the NCAA has been sort of the big bad guy. And, you should always have your chance to correct a wrong in court or perceived wrong or slight. But this is pretty black and white wrong. And yet we're still proceeding to trying to find a loophole to allow for him to play. And the problem isn't gambling. No one's arguing. Even the courts aren't arguing that the gambling is allowed. But the problem is that we allowed for that appeal and that injunction, that temporary injunction to take place. That's going to allow him to play out the season. So he can lose the case. They'll drop the case after the year, but you still got what you wanted. And he brought up a couple of other cases, which is interesting, less high-profile cases on different subject matters that allowed the same thing. That's the problem. We can't just say, all right, screw the rules, go ahead and play, and then, oh, yeah, we were wrong at the end of the day, but you got to play anyway, and collect your check, and the team got what they want. Everyone gets what they want, except for the competition, who basically gets punished by allowing for the mistake to proceed.
I'm seeing a lot of social media bring up Hunter Deckers, the Iowa State quarterback, who I think made one bet either on his team or against his team.
Right.
And his college career was done.
Right.
And,
which Sam brought up, basically, you should have brought it to litigation, and perhaps you'd be in the same spot Brendan Sorsby is.
Do you think that if the Big 12 were to step in and say, you know what, we're gonna deem you ineligible for the Big 12 title game,
mm-hmm.
the NCAA steps in and says, you know what, we're gonna rule you ineligible for the
mm-hmm.
college football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
Does Texas Tech then again go to court, sue, and try and get what they want?
I think they could try, but at some point, it feels like there is a breaking point. The breaking point should be, frankly, with, the Texas Tech coaching staff, administration, to say, no, that you broke the rule. You're not allowed to be that's the funny thing about the argument, saying the stress of it all. Right. And I said the full quote a moment ago, but it's like saying, all right, so then at what point does that not become relevant? If Texas Tech benches him, that's going to cause him mental stress too. They're not playing him anymore. The courts have no ruling over that. Right. So if Tech elects to not play him or to kick him off the team, they have that right. Right. So if the Big 12 elects to say, hey, you can't play, Texas Tech has two choices: to either force the hand and fight against the league that allows them to be part of it, which could then include postseason bans and monetary punishments and such. At some point, it will reach a breaking point, but someone has to step up and say enough's enough.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
It really shouldn't be on Brett Yormark, as Mark Daniels brought up earlier in the Big 12, but Matt Murchell did as well. But it really might be, because clearly no one at Texas Tech wants to do it.
Oh, of course not. They spent $5 million to bring the guy in. They want him to play. the Spurs are right back in this series after their 115-111 win at Madison Square Garden. To me, the game was a little sloppy at times as well as chippy. The Spurs did have a plus 10 free throw advantage. And you know what? I know we're trying not to make things about the refs, but it did seem like they were getting the benefit of the calls a little bit more than New York. But I digress. Mark and I did talk about how much pressure was going to be on New York to win Game 3. Mark also mentioned now how much pressure is going to be on the Knicks to win Game 4 at home. Tuck it or untuck it. This was the Knicks. They needed to win Game 3, and because they lost, they will now lose the series.
Oh, untuck that. By winning the first two, they put themselves in the catbird seat. They still have home court advantage. If they win Game 3, they will be the prohibitive favorite to win the NBA championship. So, Game 4, excuse me. Yeah, thank you. It would be it's still all in front of them, right? Nothing is changed in that respect. And look, pressure always goes both ways. We overplay that phrasing in sports all the time. Someone asked Wemby about the idea of pressure. Like you should welcome it. It's the opportunity is what it is. It's an opportunity for both teams to win an NBA championship. The Spurs have to look at it as we have to win Game 4 to increase our odds. They still would be alive, but 3-1, you'd have to do a Warriors-Cavs comeback. Yeah. That's what you'd be looking at. So the pressure's on them to win Game 4 as much as it is on the Knicks, maybe more so.
I think there's a huge amount of pressure on New York. Again, I thought they were going to come out a little stiff, which they did. They were sloppy. They turned the ball over early and often, missing shots, and
that's what it came down to, real quick. Like, because if I have a pet peeve, it's everyone immediately going to the officials for the reason they lost the game. Like, there's going to be missed calls both ways in every game imaginable. That's not the reason Knicks lost. Even Mark Daniels said earlier, it's not the reason. It is, and I love that they added this on ESPN's little team stats thing, because I always have to do the math myself. Now they've added it. The turnovers, which has been a Spurs bugaboo, they only had 8 last night. The Knicks had 13, which isn't a lot, but it's enough, especially when it leads to, and it says points conceded is the way they phrase it, 21 points to 7. That's the difference in a game that it's decided at the margins. That is very much so the difference. The sloppiness early, you give away possessions throughout the bulk of this series. I think I wrote it down over the weekend when I was on TV. I think the Knicks had put up something like 17 more shots. Hold on. I think I have it here written somewhere. 16 more shots the Knicks had in the series in the first 2 games. You get more shots at the rim, your percentages don't matter as much. The Knicks ended up with 4 more last night, even with the turnovers as a bugaboo. But it wasn't as much, right? There's a big difference between 16 through 2 and 4 last night. Like, it's the Knicks' fault. They turned it over too much.
They did. All right, I want to get to this one because this one kind of cracked me up. The team that the Spurs went through to make the NBA Finals, the Oklahoma City Thunder. SGA became the NBA's back-to-back MVP. He did fall 1 game short of back-to-back NBA Finals appearances. This rise is starting for him has been met with some criticism. And at the end of the season presser, he was Thunder GM Sam Presti.
He's playing against 6 people. He's got 5 defenders, and the 6th defender is social media. And, that's a reality. And he's not going to be the last player that the machine decides to target. But no one's going to handle this gracefully, because when they turn it on somebody else, they're not going to step up there every night and not acknowledge it.
Of course, what do you expect the Thunder GM to come to the defense of his superstar player? Tuck it or untuck it if I said that SGA is bringing all of this well-deserved criticism to himself, and while he is a great player, he could be even better if he focused more on scoring rather than foul baiting.
That's so loaded. I love the way you said that. I'm going to untuck it because I love to argue your point here. Like, Presti's doing his job. Look, if you're on that position, look, Jalen Brunson's been heavily criticized up until this year. Now he's starting to get his flowers, but if they lose, he'll be criticized again. If Wemby loses, look, I can be very critical of some of the things Wemby's doing. Last night he passed on several shots mid-air, throwing the ball to a teammate, sometimes very sloppily doing so. SGA lost. LeBron's subject to criticism all the time. Like, it is part of the role of being a great player in this league.
No.
Yes, it absolutely is.
No. I think you're misunderstanding the question. SGA.
He hasn't brought it on. He's brought it on himself by being successful. And when you fail,
he is foul baiting like crazy.
LeBron doesn't foul bait. He's been subject to criticism. The loser of this series will be subject to criticism this offseason.
I think Stan Presti spent like 6 minutes talking about it.
It comes with it's not fair necessarily, but that's what social media does. We build you up to tear you down.
No, the amount of foul baiting that SGA does is 100% ridiculous.
That's a separate matter why people don't like him. But we build him up, tear him down.
No, that's what I'm talking about. The criticism of SGA is the foul baiting. And Sam Presti went on to lay out all these different stats about technical fouls and fouls overturned and this and that on SGA and how he's going about things the right way. And yes, for the most part he is. But again, the constant flopping is absolutely ridiculous.
No one likes it. We didn't like it when James Harden we didn't like it when a lot of guys have done it over time. He's just another guy that's doing it, has gotten to be able to do it successfully. But if you're foolish enough to believe that's the only reason he's successful, you don't follow the NBA or watch him.
No, I'm saying he could be more
I'm not
successful.
saying you. I'm saying those that go to that route immediately. It's like those that want to say, oh, yeah, it's the officials. It's 8-on-5. I've heard that repeatedly throughout the series by Knicks fans. It's 8-on-5.
No,
all right. If that helps you sleep at night,
I do think SGA could be better if he just stopped flopping so much.
Right. It's the Thunder play with 8, right? That's how it works.
I did not say that.
I didn't say you said that, but in theory they are, right? Because the refs are giving them calls.
Well, when you're like
8-on-5, they're not even in the finals.
Tuck it or untuck it.
Chris is flopping in the studio. Notes and quotes next. That about will do it for us today. One quick note for you that I saw Warren Sharp put out as we're a long way from the start of the NFL season, but he was noting the last time teams shut out an opponent in the league. Would you believe it's been 34 years? I cannot believe this since the Washington Commanders defense pitched a shutout.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
What? I mean, no one's even close to them. Most teams have done it in the last few years. It's been 34 years. That's impossible.
It's not, apparently.
I guess not. CV, always a pleasure, my man.
Thank you, Tuck.
I love that we got heated today. I love that we got excited today. Sports can do that. Have fun with it always. Marc Daniels back here tomorrow. You guys have a great day.